welcome or welcome back to the Night Sky Knitting channel. My name is Rachel, I am your host, and I am a knitter based out of Ottawa, Canada. This channel is my chatty outlet to talk all things knitting with occasional guest appearances by other crafts, because if I don't have a chatty outlet, I will ruin all of my relationships by talking incessantly about knitting. So today is sometime in the third week of December, I think the 19th or the 20th. I know that my finals are over and I'm in the last week of work, and I know that Christmas is soon and Hanukkah has already started. So yeah, this is the frazzled gift knitting special because I have been doing so much gift knitting and I feel like I have so little to show for it, but I gotta film one of these check-ins before I leave to go visit Toronto for the holidays, or else it won't be another podcast for like 2, maybe 3 weeks, because, and even then I won't have most of the stuff I have been working on because I'm going to have at that point given them all away as gifts. So even though I am not emotionally prepared to film this, we're just going to charge on by. I'm wearing my cotton grass sweater by the Petite Knitter. It's my first successfully finished sweater. I did try and knit a couple before then and they didn't work, and now they're dryer balls. However, you can tell that I have some amateur stuff going on where like there's some bunching in the neck here when it lays flat, and if you were to look up close, the tension on these floats is nightmarish, but I still love this one. It's still warm, it's still cute, I still really like looking at it, and it feels kind of winter festive. So I'm wearing it for this episode because I have no finished objects that are wearables for myself to have you guys see instead. So I have been knitting lots of gifts for birthdays, for Secret Santa, for the holidays, for babies, because I volunteered too for the most part, because I don't know how to gauge what is an appropriate amount of stuff to commit to while also working full-time and doing my master's part-time, because I don't have any grip on reality, it seems. So I have created a mess for myself. I am the only person who is to blame, and this episode will be documenting that for posterity. So to start off, because if I don't talk about them now, I will absolutely forget because they're not here anymore, I knit my friend for Secret Santa some little toadstool ornaments using the Charming Mushroom pattern, or the Charming Mushroom free pattern on Ravelry. I will link it down below. I've seen at least Laura of Penrose Knits, and I think Carson of Carsley Handmade also make these. I saw it on both of their podcasts. My friend that I had for Secret Santa is German and loves homemade gifts above all else. She said this multiple times, and apparently it's common in Germany to use mushrooms as like a motif for ornaments on your tree, and also she got some little mushroom like statues for her house, so I thought that would be great. I got her like another little eco-friendly gift to go with it, and then I made 4 mushrooms, and here is a photo that I posted to my Instagram featuring them and a project that you will see at a future point in this episode. They were really fun, they were really fast. I used scraps. I used some scrap Sisu Senna's Garn sock yarn held double for the stalk of the mushroom, and then some Yawal sock yarn in the red that I'm using to make the Charming, the Magic Toadstool socks by Stone Knits for my brother for the base. And then I learned how to embroider French knots for the little dots on the mushroom caps, which was very fun because I'm trying to branch out into embroider a little bit, and it's nice to learn new stitches slowly as part of my knitting. And these are all pretty fast. I liked making them. I tried another mushroom pattern as well that was originally meant for a fingering weight yarn, but I didn't like how the base connected to the mushroom cap, and I had to sew on the stalk to the mushroom cap, and I did such a wretched job. It looked really awkward, and I wanted one where it was all knit in one, not because I don't like seaming, but because I'm really bad at it. And it's not, I mean, my friend loves homemade gifts and has repeatedly asked for homemade gifts, and she gives homemade gifts, but there's still like, I'm not going to give her something that's amateur hour, you know? So I gave them to her. She really liked them. And then we started decorating her tree because I was in Montreal 2 weekends ago to celebrate a whole bunch of different things, and we were decorating her tree for a Christmas brunch. And it turns out she already has 2 other sets of full-on red toadstool ornaments. A bunch of clay ones she made herself and a bunch of plushy ones from IKEA. So what probably happened is that at some point in time she mentioned that she had a bunch of these, and that information was embedded in my subconscious, but I didn't remember that she already had them, only that she likes them, and then I made her some too. And she keeps assuring me that these are her favorite and that she really likes them, and it's not the only part of her Secret Santa gift. But like, still, a bit of an L on that. But they were cute. I recommend them in the future if you're looking to make some really cute, very fast ornaments, and it was fun to make. And she says that she likes them, but I mean, I'm sure she likes them, but she already has so many. So it's just a very mushroom forward tray is what we were saying. So that is my first gift knit. This is not in chronological order at all, by the way. I don't think I can remember at this point. Next, I have, I think we'll feed into a whip from there because they're related thematically, which is the magic toadstool sock I'm knitting for my brother, it's inside out because I was weaving in the ends and then I gave up halfway. But I have finished one and I'm on the cuff of the other. So this is a very popular pattern. I'm sure you've seen them before. I have my own pair here on my sock ladder. And a while back, I was knitting on these on FaceTime with my brother. And he said, I love them. Would you make me an identical pair? And I said, yes. And 8 months later, I have gotten around to it. So here's the first. This is in Yawal sock yarn. I don't have any of the button bands. They've all fallen off. However, this is their sock yarn that comes with reinforcement nylon thread in them. It's in each tube, so you gotta kind of like really deal with some yarn vomit to, no, it's on the other side, to get it out, but maybe I have another one just kind of loose. I do, okay. So at the beginning, inside this guy was this matching nylon thread for reinforcement, and I did in fact use the red nylon, even though there is nylon and I think some small amount of acrylic in this otherwise wool and superwash wool base. I did use that reinforcement thread in this heel flap because that is one of the areas where my brother does wear through socks pretty quickly, and so I thought, why not use it? And I'm kind of just grateful to have thread in general. I often do find myself using it, and so that was nice and neat. But yeah, this, I've knit this pattern before, I like it. This I actually had sit in timeout for a while. I worked on other gift knits because I did the mushroom toadstool caps, and then I finished the caps, and then I looked at them, and the dots on the caps were not very prominent at all because I messed up how I did the color dominance when I was holding the 3 strands of yarn, because this is my first time doing squirrel. They're really active this time of year. I can see them really clearly through the trees, and they're some of the few animals out there nowadays, so I always notice when they're there. First time doing 3-stranded color work, messed up the dominance. This sat in not even really timeout, just like purgatory for a bit while I waited to complete some more pressing things and then rip it back and do it again. For this, I also learned ladderback jacquard to catch my floats after so many of you have recommended it to me when I talk about finding float catching annoying. You guys were right. This technique did, I think, make this sock overall stretchier and my floats mostly looser. I do think it's nice. Can you see any of them? Maybe a little bit here you can see one. That ladder back, you can tell it's there because it's of the puckering a little bit. But there are a few of them. And if you're not familiar with ladderback jacquard, it's a way, or jacquard, I don't know how you want to pronounce it. Sorry for the construction-y noises outside. It's where you kind of hook your contrast yarn that you're trying to carry in the back onto a purl bump and then create a ladder of stitches that sit behind your working yarn to keep catching it without having to twist your yarns together. And it makes for a, in my opinion, more elastic series of floats, which is good, and it stops my yarns from getting very tangled, which is something that annoys me. And I will continue to use ladder back as a technique when I'm working color work, because I do think all of you guys were right, as per usual, and it is definitely something that is a technique I'm very happy to have learned, makes my life easier and my knitting better. I will say 3-color color work, not that bad. As you can tell, I can only, or as you can see, I didn't have to really do a lot. This is a very good way to dip my toes in, but I'm happy with it. I do think, because it is the end of the year, and I'm thinking naturally about reflecting on this past year of knitting and what I want for the year ahead, and improving my color work tension is high on that list. My color work tension is so messy. This has already had one very lazy block because, and I'm not afraid to admit it to you guys, so we had presentations for my one class this semester, and my professor is a knitter, and I asked, is it okay if I knit in class during the presentations because it helps me focus? And she said, absolutely, of course. And then I asked all my classmates, are you guys okay with this? And they're used to me knitting through Zoom school for the past year and a half, so like, it was, you know, to pretend that I haven't been knitting through Zoom school, but they already know. So they're like, yeah, duh, Rachel, we know that you do this, it's fine. But I thought I was going to be working on this. I ended up working on the toadstool ornaments because I was running out of time before my train to Montreal. But I was so embarrassed of how awful the floats were on this and how scrunched my color work was that I did a quick block the night before class because I didn't want to roll up and have my professor, a woman I really respect, and a fellow knitter see how god-awful they were. So this is already after a lazy soak, no wool wash, nothing, and you can still see there's a fair amount of puckering going on, especially over here. And this is already after I've let them relax once. So these are going to have a second hardy blocking and then maybe a steam before I give them to my brother. So this is one sock. It looks a little big to me, but I think that's better than too small. One of the pairs of socks I've already made my brother has been too small, and he doesn't wear them because they're too small, but the other fits perfectly. How far have I gotten on the second sock, you ask? Even though Christmas is in like 6 days? Not far enough, let me tell you now. The problem is, I like this pattern a lot. I really like Charlotte Stone's colorwork patterns in general. I've knit 3. You guys are currently sitting on top of her Charming Colorwork Socks book, which I'm so excited to dig my grubby little mitts into soon, but not now. The thing is I'm doing, or I have been doing, a lot of 9-inch circular knitting between the fingerless mitts for my roommate, which were a great gift. She literally wears them every day. She wears them either on their own, or she has huge, like, thrummed, worsted, bulky weight mittens that she normally wears, and she layers them. She wears the fingerless ones underneath, and thank God, because she wears them all the time and it makes me so happy. Regardless, those are I knit on 9-inch circulars, the same 9-inch circulars that these are on. This whole men's size 9.5 sock, and I'm also knitting a pair of mittens on 9-inch circulars, which you guys will not see until they have been completed and gifted to her, and then I steal them back to film for a little bit because my mother does watch these episodes and I don't want to spoil them more than I already have. So, hi Mom, I am working on your mitts. They are a lot of fun, but you'll get them soon. The thing is that, like, that's just too much 9-inch circular knitting, and I'm finding my hands for the first time have started to cramp. Whenever I have knitting pain and warning signs from my body that I need to take a step back, for me it's always in my elbows, and I've gotten some strategies implemented into my routine and my care for myself to stop that, but I don't know yet how to deal with the fact that, like, when I'm knitting on these, my pinkies start to kind of get cramped, and then I need to take a break because we're not going to knit through the pain, we're not going to push ourselves, it's not worth it. And I think if I injured myself knitting something for my mom or my brother, they would be so upset. But it means that these are going slowly, the mittens are going slowly, because it's too much, and I have been at certain points switching to magic loop instead, even though it's usually a bit slower for me, because it means I can knit longer without cramping. So these are my project for meeting knitting once I get past the color work. and before bed knitting and thoughtless knitting to see if I can maybe get these done in time. If not, my brother and my mom know I'm behind on their gifts specifically. My mom said that hers should be at the lowest priority list, especially since I'm going to be with them for 2 weeks. I will probably just give my brother like this sock under the tree, and then he will see me knit the second sock for another couple days, and then he will have it. The same with the mitten. Though I think there's a chance I could get these done on time. I don't want to push myself to the point of injury. However, this I've done pretty much just today in my 3 meetings this morning. So, I mean, it's going to happen. It's just a matter of time. So that is my first whip. Second finished object is wet because it's blocking and it's not drying fast enough considering I have to put this in a suitcase tonight. But this is the head sock pattern by Amanda Steck, which is a free 2x2 ribbed hat pattern that I have knit for my boyfriend in the recycled unraveled cashmere from a sweater from my dad. So this is 2x2 rib for like 8 inches, and then crown decreases that you can't see because the light this close to the solstice is really bad, and this is in navy blue. I messed up the decreases. Okay, there you can start to see. Can you see that these are not even, these quarters? That this one over here is much narrower than the other 4? I have been racking my brain trying to figure out how that happened. And what I think it is I think that I cast on for, this is a free pattern so I can tell you stitch counts. I think that I cast on 144 stitches, but then forgot that and thought that I had done 160 stitches, which is the larger size, and then followed the decrease rules for 160 stitches as opposed to 144 and didn't notice until about 8 rows in. And then I just kind of winged it to make it work because I told my boyfriend I'd made this mistake. And before I even got to the point where I was going to say, I don't care, it's a hat, no one's going to tell and it's still going to fit really well, he said, oh my goodness, that doesn't matter, Rachel, do not stress about it, don't rip it back, just keep going. Great boyfriend. Worthy of a hat. And I think that, like, I mean, he's already, not a lot of people are going to be able to see the top of his head, you know? And it still looks like a hat that fits. The crown decreases are still, in my opinion, very nice. That's what really stands out about this pattern to me. And he loves blue. He looks great in blue. It looks like this. I'm going to weave in the ends soon, except his head is bigger, so it's going to be a little bit better. And I think it'll be really, really nice. I was just waiting to block it. I finished this a couple weeks ago. I was just waiting to block it when I had something else to block for efficiency, save water, save wool wash. And so I blocked this with my other wet gift hat, which is also a free pattern that I recommend. I really recommend this pattern. I talk about this in an underrated knitting accessories pattern video that may or may not be out. And I think that if you have the patience to knit a lot of 2x2 rib, this is a fantastic option. It looks really nice. You can modify the stitch count by going down by intervals of 16 stitches for thicker weights of yarn. It's a great gift. It's very meditative. It's good if you're a beginner. You just have to be okay with knitting a lot of 2x2 rib. The reason why I got away with knitting this on the smaller size, even though my boyfriend has a 23.5 inch head, is that it's supposed to be knit, I think, on like 2.75 millimeter needles, but I think I did this on a 3.25 and held 2 strands of this together. So it's really thick and plump and plush and soft, and I know he will cherish it. He already wears the knit hat that I made him for our first anniversary every single day, but that one I did a really bad job on because it was like my second ever hat, and you can tell. So I'm happy to have be able to give him an upgrade. Also, so when he tells everybody my girlfriend knit my hat, I'm a little bit prouder of the hat. So the next gift knit hat that's kind of wet is this. It's called Jason's Cashmere Hat by Melissa Thompson. And it's a free worsted weight hat pattern that I think, again, would make a really great gift. And I knit this in Cascade 220 Superwash in the color Silver Pink, I think. And this is for my step-grandma, my grandfather's partner, who is also a knitter and who I've never really made anything for. And so my mom said, are you thinking it would maybe be possible to knit something for her this year? And I thought, oh, it's kind of embarrassing that I didn't think of that myself. So I asked my grandfather what kinds of colors she likes, and my mom did some recon and saw the color of her coat and her scarf, and my grandfather said pink, and then my mom also reported back, yes, I think pink is the right choice, and I do think this would look really good with her coloring. So this is, okay, it's actually supposed to be a folded brim, but it's still wet again. So I finished this literally yesterday. It's gonna look like this. I think that this, it took me 3 days to knit, but 2 of those were the ribbing. It just kind of took forever because I wanted a thick brim. And I think that this is classic enough to suit her. And I made a pom-pom with the leftovers so that it'll, I don't know, I think this seems like just kind of her style and something she would appreciate. And she's also a knitter and likes cables, so I figured this would be good. It is really stretchy. I'm just really ruining my hair today. Sorry, I have this really long thread so I can sew in the pom-pom properly, but it's gonna look like this. And so I think this is, again, a really good one to have in the arsenal of fast, easy, fun gift knits. And yeah, there are a couple other cable knitting hat patterns that look really nice. Blanking on the name, but Lisa of Lisa's Knit Club did a seed stitch and cable hat pattern that I think is really, really nice recently. But this, I think, is just so classic and nice and really fun and really memorizable because of the cable intervals always happening at the same time. So that I'm going to put next to the radiator once again. And show you my second pink hat. And I actually forgot to show you last podcast episode. So this is Louise's bunny ears hat that I knit for Halloween. I am aware that it's December, but I knit this hat for my Halloween costume. I pinned it into place. If you're a Bob's Burgers fan, I recommend it. I messed up. It has a folded brim, and I assumed that, like most folded brims, you actually folded it, and I didn't pay close enough attention to the pattern, and you're not supposed to fold it where I folded it. Like, that inch that you see here is supposed to be here, which is why it's so small. And then you knit a lining and seam it in from the inside, and you connect that to the ears. When I wore this, I used bobby pins to keep the ears in place for Halloween, and that was really successful. This is a free pattern. I knit this again in Cascade 220 Superwash in the color Cotton Candy, and I have a fair amount of this. I have like 20 grams of this left over, which means this hat took 80 grams, and I'm tempted to go back and fix this to make it not look so comically small. When you do Louise's pigtails, this is a character from a TV show called Bob's Burgers. I love it a lot. I went dressed as that character for Halloween, and Bob's Burgers is very much one of my comfort shows. I also enjoyed the movie. You can tell my seaming is really messy because, and not for lack of trying, I'm just not good at it. There's some rowing out. I knit this in like 2 days. Oh yeah, whatever the heck's going on over here. I knit this in 2 days for my Halloween costume, and you can tell, but it was kind of dark that night and no one else could. But for ease of future Halloween costumes, or even if I just decide I want to be a grown woman in a bunny ears hat, at some point I think I should undo this folded hem and then do the lining instead, or just knit it longer and then fold it again so that it's actually more wearable. But I did finish this, so that's 3 pink hats in one season, including my Better Now beanie, which is downstairs, and I showed you guys 1 or 2 episodes ago, which I have been wearing a lot when it hasn't been too cold, and I have opted for this instead. Yes, I knit a balaclava. In the meantime, this has been decor in my room, which is also fun. This is the November balaclava by Petite Knit. And I knit this in, okay, so I held two different yarns together for the fuzzy main section, body of the balaclava, and then the base yarn double for all of these rib sections. And that base yarn is the Fiber Company Road to China Light in the color Beryl, this is the label, and this is what I have left over. It's this beautiful light kind of sky blue, and then for this fuzzy part that's a little bit more sage green, I used my leftover Drops brushed alpaca silk in the color sage green, which is leftover from my fortune sweater. And it is knit in, I knit the first size, and this is in all over fisherman's rib except for these. And I knit this because a month and a half ago, I was walking somewhere. I don't know where, probably to campus. And I was wearing a hat, and it was so bitterly cold because Ottawa's a cold city. If we did podcast bingo, me complaining about the weather in Ottawa would be one of the squares. But regardless, it was very, very cold, and my hat was not covering my ears. I had this thing going where my shoulders were hunched because it was cold, and I was wearing my hat because it was cold, and I had my scarf wrapped around me. But my collar and my scarf were pushing up the hat off my ears, and then I had to keep tugging my hat back down, and it just wasn't covering my earlobes, and they were starting to freeze, and it was very uncomfortable, especially since I had earbuds in, which I guess kind of pushed the hat out a little bit more, making it, I don't know, I guess more access to the cold. And this was despite the fact that I was wearing a hat with 3 layers of wool and mohair on my ears at a pretty tight gauge, and it's a warm hat. It just wasn't covering my ears enough as I wanted it to. And I was so unhappy. I was like, face full of wind. It felt like -20, and that first cold snap of the winter is always just so like unpleasant before our blood thickens and we all get used to it. And I thought, okay, I'm just gonna do it. I'm just gonna knit the fucking balaclava. Like, sorry for swearing. But that was very much my mindset. I was like, I'm done. I can't go on like this anymore. I don't care if I look bad. Function over fashion. This is about survival here, baby. I need the balaclava. So I wasn't sure what color to knit it in. My friend had knit the November balaclava and liked it and recommended it. She also lives in Ottawa. I trusted her. So I decided to knit it too, and I wasn't sure what colors, and I was visiting my family in Toronto, as I often do, and I was at Knit-O-Matic, as I often am, and I saw this beautiful, beautiful yarn, which is the softest and most luxurious yarn I have ever worked with. This is a blend of silk, camel, alpaca, and merino. The precise amounts are 65% alpaca, 15% silk, 10% camel, and 10% cashmere, not merino. And it is like $26 or $25 at Knit-O-Matic for 50 grams because of this wildly luxurious count. But I had a gift card from my mom because for every gift giving occasion, my mom gets me a gift card to a yarn store. And this seemed like the exact kind of luxe thing that you get as a gift, like the kind of thing that's too fancy for you to buy for yourself, so someone gets it for you as a gift. But I touched it, I thought, wow, that's the most luxe thing ever, but I wouldn't want to buy more than one skein of it, and what am I going to do with 50 grams of this super luxe yarn? I'm not really a Sophie scarf person because I don't like garter very much. And it's just not practical for me. And my climate, like I would need something warmer for the outside and not as warm for the inside because we rely on central heating. So I went home, and as I was lying awake in bed that night, it hit me. Pair this with my 20 grams of this that had been sitting in stash forever. So I checked to see if the math was right, and it was. So I went the next day and I got my single skein of like $25 for 50 grams of yarn. Never worked with camel before. I was very excited, and I went home and I cast on. And then I double checked the pattern, and I made such a rookie mistake. I looked at it and I saw that it requires something like 100 or 110 grams of the main yarn, and I misread that as meters, so I thought, oh yes, this will give me some to spare, but I actually had just less, like a few meters less than what I needed because I looked at the meterage as opposed to the weight. So I felt really silly because if you think about it, I kind of used my gift card to buy a $25 gram a $25 ball of yarn to get a $6 ball out of stash, but I kept going and it's a good use of it. And the way that I originally justified this to myself was, what is something that I use every single day for like 6 months of the year? My winter accessories. So this is exactly the kind of thing to splurge and get something super, soft and like against my neck and my face, which are very, very wool sensitive. And so I ordered a second skein of this using the very last of my gift card and then some of my own pennies, as Lizzie from Hive Knits always says, even though pennies haven't existed in Canada for like almost 10 years now. And carried on, and I made the executive decision to drop the strand of the Drops alpaca and hold the 2 strands of the Road to China light, which is kind of a weird name for a yarn, for the parts that touch my face and my neck, because this, no itch factor whatsoever. It is so soft. There's almost nothing I can rub against my forehead and not have it bother me. Merino most of the time, still kind of scratchy. This is an incredibly soft yarn, but even then it's still, there's a little bit of a prickle factor because my skin's a big baby. And so it's slightly off with the colors in a way that I think is pretty. I'm not usually a big color block person, but I like this a lot. And it worked. My neck and my ears and my chin are so incredibly warm. I have been wearing this all the time. And I also learned that, here's the thing, I doubled this for this and this. If I had not doubled this and just continued to hold these two together for these edgings, I absolutely would have had enough with just one skein. I have most of a ball left over from the second skein. I did all of the neck and half of this neckline ribbing with one 50-gram skein of the Road to China Light and less than one, and you can still see I have a fair amount left over, of the Drops Brushed Alpaca Silk, making this, I think, a good choice for a really bougie, special, expensive, wonderfully soft thing of yarn. And this pattern worked up so quickly. This took me, I think, 2 or 3 days. I thought it was going to take longer because half fisherman's rib, every row you have to knit twice to get one of those stitches, but because it's so big, it grew pretty quickly, and because it's a pretty small balaclava, this was in the first size again, as a reminder. I went with the first size even though my head was kind of between sizes because I know that this will grow with time because this is mostly alpaca, and I wanted it to be more fitted, again, for function over fashion. Like, to have a fashion balaclava or hood. Sorry, I have my computer providing light because even though it's 4 p.m., the sun's already started setting. For fashion, you want something loose, like a pretty hood. For function, no wind's getting in there. And this has been very, very, very functional. I've been wearing it for 2 weeks. When I was visiting Montreal, we had a couple -18 with the wind chill days. I was snug as a bug in a rug. I was so warm. I was so comfortable. Whenever I had to hop on the metro, and was vibing. It's just so perfect. I'm a balaclava convert. I was so hesitant last year, especially since my hair was still growing in from chemo, and I didn't like the way that I looked with short hair, and hats really accentuated all the things that I didn't like with the short hair because my hair disappeared under the hat. And so I was very resistant to balaclavas, even though I knew it would be quite practical because I didn't feel feminine in them. And now that my hair is back and I'm feeling like I look like myself again, I said, you know what, who cares? And I love it, and I'm strongly considering knitting myself a second one. I reach for this before I reach for my hats. It's lightweight, it's so warm, it does exactly what I need it to do, and I can listen to music without wind getting in my ears. I stop fighting to give up and curl up into the snow and just lay there whenever I have to be out when it's really cold, and this is wonderful. And when it gets really cold, I can also just, and then my chin is warm, so I highly recommend a balaclava if you're okay with sometimes looking like an egg. The only thing is, so the reason why this doesn't look as bad as I thought it was going to is because of this increased line. The balaclava starts not at your forehead, making it more of like a 50s movie star with the wrapped scarf and summertime look, as opposed to like egg. Looks more feminine and elegant and flattering than I was expecting it to. That's nice, but the bar was really low with my expectations for style in this balaclava. The flip side is my forehead gets cold. My hair kind of covers it a little bit, then the wind blows and it goes like that, and then my forehead is cold and exposed. So I think for my next balaclava, I will pick a less fashionable one and have one that goes right here and just go full egg. And yeah, I endorse. I'm gonna pack it, I'm gonna wear it, I love it. I love my balaclava, so highly recommend. Look at it. Oh, I have woven in these ends, I just haven't trimmed them. You might be wondering, what are you gonna do with the spare grams you have of this incredibly fancy yarn? I'm open to input on this because I have an idea, but it might be really bad. So here's the thing. My neck is quite sensitive to itch. This is, in my opinion, a flaw and a personal shortcoming, and if I could, I would erase this fact about myself. I find it so annoying, but I am quite itch sensitive. This is not really bothering me right now, but sometimes it does, especially if I at any point am sitting too close to a radiator or I'm like running to catch the bus or something and then I'm just sitting there really itchy with mohair or wool against my chest. This so far, not contributing. So my thought is, for sweaters, when I am knitting a double folded collar, to use this for the inside, because it'll only use a few grams at a time. I feel like I have enough mileage here for the insides of a few different sweater collars, and it is, oh, the murder's here. Can you hear them, the crows? There are a lot of crows in the Ottawa Valley. I like them, they're big. And it will be very nice and soft, I think make my sweaters more wearable, and I think might be a very cute, like stylistic choice, like a little personal signature that the inside of all my collars is a different color. My hesitation with this is, are things going to wash differently and grow differently with the different fiber contents, with this being different from 100% wool that the rest of the sweater would be in? I think I can kind of adjust for that a little bit by going up and down needle sizes for, this would only be for DK weight sweaters really, but I mostly knit DK weight sweaters, so that's not much of an issue. I'm also thinking, with time, I feel like I need to put elastic into the necklines of most of my double folded collars anyway, because they stretch. I would just do that and it would have the same effect, and I think that is the best use for this yarn. But if you have alarm bells going off in your head and you know a reason why that's a really bad idea, please let me know. I'm very open to input. So that's my main selfish knit. Those are most of my finished objects. I have a UFO to show you. Oh, I have also knit my grandfather's socks, as per usual. They are quite funky and they're already packed. So I'm going to hopefully take a photo and include them in the next podcast episode, because now I'm 2 for 2 for remembering to show you guys my grandfather's socks that had been finished for a while. But because they were finished for a while, they've just been out of sight, out of mind. Okay, my UFOs. I have 2. So I spent most of September and October knitting a camisole number 7 for my mom, and it's a big old fail. Here it is. Yarn, stunning. It is a yarn I sort of thrifted. A yarn store in Toronto had a secondhand yarn swap charity sale going on where they had a bunch of yarn that was donated by community members, and it was nice yarn at a lower price that all the proceeds of it would go to Red Door Shelter in Toronto. I thought that was great. I got 100 grams of fingering weight silk linen from an indie diner that I don't think exists anymore, in this color that has my mom's name written all over it. And so I said I would knit her a camisole. And you guys might remember we asked for a whole bunch of different knitting patterns for this camisole, I think in September, maybe August. And I looked at every single one, but the one that really captured my mom's heart the most was camisole number 7. So I made it for her. However, I was playing yarn chicken because I couldn't get any more of this yarn. It doesn't exist anymore. Sorry, it's not really being sold anymore. And so I decided not to do, so the front and the back are more or less the same. You've got triangles for both. I've always thought that was silly in camisoles. I understand it makes knitting top down easier, but I don't know why there needs to be a little triangle to cover my shoulder blade. I think I'm like, what's scandalous about my shoulder blade? So I typically skip that whenever I can. I did it here too to make this a little bit faster and also save some yarn. And the good news is I think that because of how 65% silk, 35% linen grows, absolutely have enough yarn to finish this without having to add another for like a bottom rib or do something else to make this work. The bad news is that this grew so much. Like, I don't even know how to hold this up in a way that would make that clear. Like, this is so wide. And I have to remove about 7 or 8 inches from the circumference in order to make this fit, which is great because that's 7 or 8 inches of circumference that I can add as length, and this will end up, I think, being perfect. The bad news is I knit an entire broken rib 3mm camisole, and it will have to be frogged till the point when I cast on a bunch of stitches and attached them for the body. So this is going to be one of the presents for my mom. It will probably now be her birthday present for her birthday in May. This was a lot of fun to knit because I like rib. I like broken rib. It doesn't bother me very much. And so that was good. I liked working with the silk linen. It's such a fancy fiber. I see skeins of it now being sold for like $45 Canadian or $47. So I'm really happy that I got this for $15 for my mom. And one day maybe I will make myself a silk linen camisole. But in the meantime, this sits in the basket of shame over here. That's where the basket of shame is. So this is my first unfinished object that I forgot to show you last time because I'm a bad podcaster. My next is the Lost Tank test knit I did for Friday Knits. And this, oh, I'm really losing a light. This I knit in Kat's Riverside Studio sock in the color Murmur. And I really like this pattern. It is an all over 2x1 rib that you knit top down with this nice shaped armhole, and you knit it until you want it. And I love this silhouette. You guys have seen me knit a couple other tops, like the Drinks on the Patio crop, which is a worsted weight as opposed to this fingering weight stretchy version. I signed up for this test despite all my gift knits because I loved it. It has these folded over details for the neck, and I'm supposed to have them for the armholes. The only thing is, I love this pattern and I love this yarn. I don't like them together. I think that this looks so muddy. I think it looks washed out. I think that the fact that it's rib I think it's a 28 stitch, 29 stitch count, kind of hides the beautiful variation of color that you have in the yarn. And I want to reknit this in another color and make this into something, either a stockinette camisole, where you can really see that color move beautifully, or socks at a very tight gauge. So again, you have like more than one color, so you can see that so it won't look as muddled. And I tried this on and the colors don't look good on me, but I love them. And I feel like I'm not gonna wear this. And I did have input for the test. I caught a few mistakes in the wording. I participated. I finished almost all of this. The only thing is that I don't have finished object photos. I hope that, like, this is a nice pattern. I'd recommend it. I think it's good for beginners. Phoebe of Friday Knits includes several areas where you can customize it and how to do so, like in the neck or the arms or the body or all these different things. It's just, like, I was rushing to get this done on time. And then I tried it on and I was like, why am I rushing to try something, like to finish something I know I'm gonna frog? And I have so many gift knits to get done. I was in the middle of finals. I still work full time. It just made no sense. So very sorry, Phoebe. This is a beautiful top. I will knit it again. And I will use this yarn again. These are not, I want this in a solid color and I want this yarn in a project that will make it really pop. And I think the light is working too much against us to really see how much better this looks in stockinette. But the final nail in the coffin was doing this neckline and seeing how much more I liked this in the stockinette versus the rib, and knowing that this was never going to be worn. So those are my unfinished objects. I have made marginal progress on my loose cardigan, which I do love very much. This is in Small Bird Workshop, small batch yarn that I don't think is available anymore. And it's a completely natural Canadian yarn, and this is a stockinette top-down raglan crew neck cardigan, a DK, and I'm about 5 or 7 or something stitches away from rows, from separating for the sleeves. I've maybe done like 2 inches on this since the last time I showed it to you because my gift knits have been my priority. This has been, you know, I will do a row or 2 rows as a reward when I finish a gift knit, or when I just need some stockinette back and forth in the round. This, again, my gift knits have been my priorities, and also the purl rows sometimes aggravate my elbows a little bit, and since I'm already barely warding off injury with all the things I'm trying to get done on time, it didn't seem smart to do that, but I'm really happy. I was hoping to get this done by now so that I could have another project be my winter break knit, but I think this is now going to be my winter break knit, and then I will come into the new year with a beautiful classic cardigan. I'm going to turn on some lights because we're going to have the end of our conversation be in better lighting than this. I really feel like I should have more to show for myself than I do, because I've been doing so much knitting and I haven't really shown you guys that much. But when I say that I really did this to myself, I mean it, because why did I choose a series of fingering weight complicated gift knits? I did that to myself. That was a me choice. I chose to knit Nathan a 2x2 fingering weight ribbed hat. I'm the one who chose to make my mom fingering weight all over colorwork mittens. I'm the one who chose to make my brother adult man-sized socks and take on that test knit, and I am reaping what I sowed. So I should have more to show you, but I don't. I do have a few acquisitions. The Road to China Light was an acquisition. The yarn that I made my step-grandma's hat is an acquisition. I met Erin from the Curry and Knits podcast. She came into town 4 weeks ago. We got coffee. It was so nice to meet her in person. She's really fun, really enjoyed it. If you haven't already watched her podcast, I recommend it. She has a very consistent uploading schedule that I think is quite aspirational, and I really like her humor. I like her style. I like her choice of fibers. She thrifts a lot of yarn. I'm jealous. I've checked my local area. There doesn't seem to be a lot available, but apparently there is in Kitchener-Waterloo. But yeah, Erin of Curria Knits. I'll link her down below, but you should check her out. She is as fun and nice in person as she is on camera. Can attest to that. But so kindly, she gave me this sock set. So she was gifted a few yarns to try by the Creative Knitter, who's a new hand dyer here in the province of Ontario. And Erin is not a sock knitter, but she knows that I am, so she gave me this really beautiful sock set with these blues and purples and kind of like mauvey grays, and then this really cute contrast skein, because I love a contrast solid color heel and toe. That's not unusual, but I like that. I don't knit socks when the variegation shows on the heel too. It bugs me. And this is in the color Let's Stay Home. It's a classic 25 nylon, 75 wool superwash mix, and thank you again, Erin. I really appreciate it. So this is really beautiful. I'm excited. It's really soft and smooth, and I think this will make a really nice pair of socks for me or for someone else. I don't know yet. I really am feeling the gift knit burnout. Again, consequence of my actions. But I think it's going to be a little while until I knit anything for anybody else for a while. I think I've got a whole host of sweaters for myself ahead of me. Which brings me into my next acquisition. Knit Picks had a sale. And I got a sweater's quantity of Knit Picks Simply Wool worsted in the color Winnie, which is this brownie gray. This light killing me. You guys will see it again soon though. I've already caked up a little bit more than half of it because this sweater, this is going to become a Lakes pullover by Ozetta, which is a saddle shoulder worsted weight oversized sweater design. I've been thinking about this since November, beginning of November. This was going to be my winter break. I was going to see if I could knit the whole thing in winter break. I don't think I'm going to try that anymore. I think I need to give my arms a bit of a rest from all this knitting and also finish the whips I already have. But I really like this. It's softer than I was expecting. This is undyed. They just mix different sheep fleece colors to get these different shades. You'll see a better one soon, not in artificial light. And I kind of feel that like browns, I don't know if they look good on me, but I think they would look good with my jeans. So I'm gonna wear them and we'll see from there. And this will also be, when I knit the Lakes pullover in this yarn, it'll be my entry into the Bougie Sweatshirt Cal run by Casey of Young Folk Knits. And I'm looking forward to it. I normally try to avoid worsted weight sweaters because they take up so much space in my tiny dresser and my suitcase, which I'm currently experiencing as I'm attempting to pack for 2 weeks of cold weather. And despite that, I want to knit this. I want a big bougie sweatshirt. And I got 5 skeins of this, which is 500 grams for $25 US during their sale around Black Friday, which means I'm going to get a worsted weight sweater for $36 Canadian of yarn plus what, 9 or 10 for the pattern. So less than $50 Canadian for a sweater, yarn and pattern of 100% untreated wool is not easy to do. So I'm pleased, very, very pleased. My last acquisition, so this was given to me via sponsorship from Hobie. It was an Instagram campaign. They were doing 5% off their existing sales for the first week of December, and so I did some stuff on Instagram to show these yarns because I'm going to use them to make mittens, so I looked at mittens. And this is the Hobie Evergreen organic yarn. It's fingering weight, got certified organic yarn. That isn't actually meaningful eco certification, so I'm really impressed that they have it. This is the color Oat. This is the color Wine. I'm going to pair these together to make a pair of colorwork mittens because I have a brown coat that I think this red would look really nice with. The only thing is this is a more of a cooler toned, almost closer to gray than Oat than I was expecting. And as a result, I'm now nervous it's going to clash with that brown. Regardless, this is going to be mittens. I expect to have a fair amount left over. And even though this is a little bit thinner, I'm thinking I'm going to make the Grown Together mittens by Ino Vickman in this, and then just kind of mess around with the needle size and the size of mitten that I'm wearing to still get ones that fit me, because I really, really, really want to make that pattern, and I think that this red would look really nice in that. So those are my acquisitions. Those are all my projects. I have some fun videos planned while I have some time off work in school, and I will be living my best life, knitting and reading and playing video games and seeing my loved ones and eating clementines and Christmas cookies. And I hope you enjoy those. I hope you enjoyed this one. I am currently formulating my 2023 Make 9 or Maker's Dozen, and I'll make a video about that. And I normally do my year of knitting wrap-ups in February on the anniversary of when I started to knit, so it's always like my second year of knitting will be the video. But if there's demand, I'll maybe do it as 2022 knitting as opposed to that. But yeah, I'm sorry that this has been kind of an angsty one. Yeah, not a lot of I think, wildly interesting content, but I wanted to show you guys so you know what I'm up to check in, and so that we have a clean slate when I return to my many garment projects and everything that I have planned for winter break in the new year. So I hope you're happy. I hope you're healthy, especially since so many viruses going around right now, like not even just COVID, but I hope that you're well. I'm rooting for you. See you again soon. Bye.